Hello and welcome to the Wheel of Crime. Ha 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 ha. What do I say? What's the disclaimer again?
Hello and welcome to the Wheel of Crime podcast, the podcast where
two ladies play games, mumble profanities, and laugh way too often. Also, this podcast does cover topics of sensitive nature, and as such, listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome back. Don't mind that disclaimer. I don't know Emily's lines, and apparently neither does she.
I had the world's most massive brain fart there. I really was just about to go into like our intro, like what we do like after the disclaimer, and be like, "Hi there, my name is Emily," and then I was like,
"What do I say?"
That's not what I do. And then because at this point it's more of like just like a reflex that I know what to say. I don't consciously think of it anymore. And that was spooky. Well, I'm glad I made it through, but...
Yes, but my name is Jen, in case I forgot to say that before, and your name is what?
Emily, I think. I could be wrong.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Sure.
But yeah, and well, we made it here. How was your last week, Jen?
It was better. I think we talked about this a lot last week, but... just all the Roe v. Wade stuff and my doom scrolling is still there, but I'm trying to, manifest it into more positive ways of figuring out how I can actually help, because it's a situation where I feel very helpless, so I'm trying to just figure out what I can do to, make a positive impact on this world. And also, the day this is coming up, is July 1st, which is Canada Day. Heyo.
Holla. Sure is. I don't know. See, I'm trying to be more, active in doing stuff. So when this is coming out, I'm probably going to be celebrating Canada Day, even though I don't normally. Just there's something that feels very cheesy to me about dressing up in red and white and hitting the streets, but...
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people transitioning to wearing orange shirts on Canada Day instead, and honestly, I think I'm gonna do that because
the First Nations people, yeah.
Literally, yeah, fuck the patriarchy, fuck John A. Macdonald, who was the first prime minister. He's a piece of shit. Let me tell you that much.
Oh yeah. No, I do like that idea too, and I don't know, it's already interesting in Canada because we're such I remember being taught in school that we're like a melting pot and whatnot, but you do seriously meeting so many people, we really are just a collective of cultures. So I don't know, I honestly would be a fan more of Canada Day, I think, if it gave me an opportunity to learn more about the people here who come from different cultures. I love learning about where people are from and that kind of things and whatnot, and Canadian culture is a thing where, because we're a mixture of so many different things, I'm not really sure if there is really one set Canadian culture, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean there's definitely the stereotypical Canadian things with poutine and maple syrup and
sorry
and our healthcare, which I enjoy, but hockey. Yeah, there's also a very large part of Canadian culture that is just a culmination of other cultures coming together and doing their own thing, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot to it, and that's one of the parts that I enjoy. But yeah, so we'll see what happens when the day comes around, because I do love fireworks. That'll be my one goal for the day. Besides that, honestly, I'm trying to make more of the summer this year, because with the pandemic and everything, I really sunk into the habit of just being indoors and doing my indoor things. And I don't really love bugs or the sun, but I find that I am happier when I feel like I'm being proactive about taking advantage of things like the good weather. So and
doing things with people and having fun.
Literally. So I'm I have an unofficial bucket list for the summer, because I feel like when I write it down, I'm gonna feel like I need to commit to it. But there's a few things.
Okay. What's on your bucket list? I want to know. I need to know.
Well, my unofficial bucket list so far is I'm trying to think of how to phrase this without giving away where we're from, even though I'm pretty sure if people Googled it, they could figure it out on their own. So I have like the simplest things as like my summer bucket list. So like for one of them, I really want to go on a nice like day hike in the mountains to on like a trail I haven't been down before. I think that'd be really cool. Um, which like is such a simple thing to ask for, but I get really anxious when I make plans like this. So like the fact to even like make the plan and go and do it would be such a big thing for me.
Right.
And then besides that, like I do want to like take advantage of some like cultural things in Calgary for like restaurants, events, stuff like that. I think that'll be a big thing for me too because I'm not normally an event person either.
Yep.
Besides that, like I set really simple ones to start with, like unofficially in my brain because I know I'll be able to achieve them. Like going for a river float and then going for patio drinks afterwards.
Nice. That sounds honestly awesome.
I just want to roast my tiny buns in the sun for like 6 hours and then have some booze and go to bed at like 8 p.m. Like that sounds really fucking good to me.
See, I also kind of have a summer bucket list in my head.
Ooh.
And one of the main ones is I really want to go to Calais Park because I went with you and your family a couple of years ago, and my partner John hasn't been since he was a kid, so I feel like that would be fun.
Oh, that would be so much fun.
I want to go on that beer cruise at Lake Minnewaca with you.
Yeah. That's fun. I'm down. I keep like thinking about it every now and again, and I'm like, we're doing it. I just
We're
know.
doing it. And I want to, Emily and I had talked about, because her younger sister, one of her younger sisters rather, has never really been to the city that I'm currently living in, which is Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really want to take you and your sister around and do all the fun things that I don't normally do. Like, I want to be a tourist in my own city. I feel like that could be fun to do with you guys.
Yeah, that would be fun. And like you were saying too, like I think it's a different experience too if you're also going with people who don't really do those kinds of things. Like I've never really done the touristy things around there. I know you just said you haven't. Like I think it'd be a really good novelty experience. And you know what? Fuck it.
Exactly.
Literally, why not? Why not?
Exactly. Why not? Why the fuck not? And I also really want to go to Great Falls in Montana, weirdly.
Yes. Well, there's also, I'm not sure, it's like, slang name is Rainbow Lake, but apparently close to the border in Montana, there's supposed to be like a drive or like a hike you can take up some of the mountains. And it takes you to a lake where it's got like stones of every color there. And
yeah, I've heard of that. I think
been
that is
tempted.
near Great Falls, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, probably. Oh, actually, that's another thing too. Just speaking of like the Montana border, I wouldn't mind going to what's that provincial park I keep mentioning all the time that I want to go to? It's really close to Montana. Waterton. I really want to go to Waterton as well.
Yes.
Glacier National Park is definitely on the bucket list as well. Maybe not for this year, but I do want to also go to Waterton at some point and maybe like because they have like a hiking trail out there and then they have like a historic town, but because it's in the south and it's so close to it's kind of like a half badland area, they have a lot of like preserved national park pieces that of like Native American history. And also you can like say like rent like a horse for the day and you can go on a bunch of like trails like around the area. It's supposed to be a really cool experience.
We should go.
So well, because we still at some point before you move need to go to Drumheller and I can take you to the mine there that we weren't able to do last time.
Yeah, we do. We need to we gotta plan this summer out. And
We do.
So we can hit all these things we want to do.
Right? I know. It's a hard one, but we'll make it work. But yeah. Well, we've definitely been rambling for a bit about the summer, but anywho, that's been basically my week is just figuring my life out, I guess.
Same. Next week is finally my last week on the show that I'm working on, and I'm so pumped. July 8th, baby. Save the date for me. That's the day I'll be celebrating.
You're like, I will be having champagne and tearing up the town that day.
Literally, I'm so pumped. But anyways, let's get on to our wheel of questions, shall we?
Hell yeah. Do you prefer the sun or the moon?
Moon.
Same. See, when I talk to people, they're always like, "Oh, Emily, you're such like a sun person," and like, I'm not really sure what they mean. It must be the vibes, but like for the sun itself, I hate the sun. I do not do well in the heat, and I always stay up till like 4 in the morning. Like, I'm just a night person.
I am way more of a night person. I feel like because of my line of work, I'm forced to wake up early, so I've become a bit more of like a morning person, in which like during my like the weekends, I have a hard time sleeping in because I'm used to my routine. But literally, as soon as I took my month break back in February, I fell back into the habit of going to bed super late so quickly. I'm like, wow, I am a night person.
That's the thing, is that for me, like getting into the habit of waking up early, I feel like takes like weeks of working at it. Whereas like I stay up late, like till like 3 or 4 in the morning, one night, all of a sudden every single night, that's how late I'm staying up. Once. Yeah. It takes once, and I'm like, how dare I? How dare I do this to myself?
How dare I fuck up months of effort for one night?
Literally. But I had a feeling you'd also be a moon person, but that's only because I know you.
You do know me, I think, pretty well at this point.
I mean, a little bit at least. So there's that.
At least kinda, you know?
Kinda, sorta, sometimes, yeah. But let's move on to our next question. So if you were trapped somewhere, so not like by a person, but say you ended up like going somewhere on your own and you got trapped there, what exactly would you do to escape? Like, do you have like a special skill you would try to employ? Like,
oh god, I think it would really depend on the situation. But, I don't know. I feel like I'd be fucked, honestly.
I love that you said that, because that was genuinely my own thought as well. Because I thought about it, and honestly, I know like random things to do in random situations, but I think if I was ever in a situation where I was trapped, I would go like straight into a state of panic, and then I wouldn't be able to come up with good ideas, and then I'd probably die, and that would be it. I'd have a heart attack.
My only saving grace, I think, would be the fact that I'm so stubborn that I would just keep trying the same thing over and over again. And even if, like, I kept failing, I would probably just keep trying until I died. And you know what? Maybe eventually I'd work my way out of there.
You're gonna dig your way out.
You know what? I might try it. But I would for sure be bawling the whole time.
Yep, you would, like, succeed on your escape, but you would still be upset about being trapped.
Yeah, I would be, like, literally sobbing in tears as I'm digging my way out of this hole that you
trapped yourself in after going on a internet deep dive on things that are depressing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's too funny. But yeah, no, I think at that point I would just accept my death. Because, I am crafty, but in like a calm sense. If I was trapped somewhere, everything out the window. Full Panic. Force, leaving it up to fate.
You know what? That's fair.
Right? Alright, let's move on to our next question. So if given the choice, would you want to have wings or no? Like literal physical wings that attach to your back.
Okay, this is kind of specific, but you know how in Akatar, how Feyre can like transform and have the wings, but then like also transform to not have them?
Yep.
Yes, that's what I want.
Right? I know. That would be the ideal thing. I was trying to when I wrote this question and then try to solve it for myself, I was like, okay, like if I was... What I would want would be to be able to basically just like put them on and take them off whenever I want. That's ideal. I also want to do the same thing with my boobs. But then if I treat my wings like I would my boobs, where you want to take them off but you can't, I think like they would be super inconvenient, but I think I would still want them. Like I would rather have the wings to be able to use them and then just have to be mindful of them than to not have them.
For sure. And if you think about it, if having wings was like a normal thing for humans to have, there would be accommodations in place, you know? There would be beds made for people with wings or chairs made for people with wings, whatever.
Right? That was my thought too. I was like, it wouldn't be the end of the world necessarily, and probably more normalized. And then I don't know. Because I also...
And the convenience.
That's my thing. Oh my god, the convenience. Like, could you imagine, like, not having to walk anywhere and you could just, like, zip on over to the convenience store and be like, I'm gonna get a chocolate bar. And it takes you, like, 2 minutes to get there?
The dream. Getting chocolate in less than 2 minutes flat. Woo!
I have, you know what? I have a big hopes and dreams. Big desires out here.
Yeah, Emily, so ambitious.
Lots of goals. All right, let's get to our last question. So how likely, within the next, like, I'll say like 2 or 3 years, would you be to travel to Greece specifically? Like, is this something that's, like, high on your bucket list? Have you been there before? Do you want to go? Like...
I would love to go to Greece. I'm pretty much open to traveling. I want to go, like, everywhere, is my whole thing. Greece is definitely high up there. It looks so beautiful and nice and is super pretty. And I would love to go there. It's, like, high on my bucket list, but I don't know if it's, like, high enough to be in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
I really want to go to Japan. That's, like, one of the top ones at this point.
Really?
And Iceland. And Italy. I really want to go back to Italy so bad.
Yep.
So, like, Greece is definitely up there, but it's not my number one, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's honestly the same for me. I would say Greece is probably my top 10 places to go, but it's not as, like, eminent for me where I would want to go in the next, like, say 2 or 3 years. For me, I think my top ones right now are, funny enough, also Japan and Italy. I want to go back to Europe really badly, and then also, there was one other place I really wanted to go. Oh yeah, I still kind of want to go to, I want to go to Bali. That's, like, one of those, like, vacation-y type places where, like, I would just love to go for, like, the atmosphere, like, the temples. Like, I love that, like, being able to, like, go to places for their history, and this is one of those places where, like, I would really like to see. And it's, like, a small enough place, like, it's a little island, so you could spend, like, a week or two, like, exploring and stuff like that, and I don't know, it's just always been something that's appealed to me. So I think that, like, those
Indonesian food is tasty as heck, too, right? So that's a plus.
And then, I'm trying to think, like, I had not, like, a physical list, but, like, an idea of, like, what my top places were, but those for sure have to be probably my top 3.
Right. I don't know. I feel like if the opportunity presented itself, I would go to Greece in an instant.
Oh yeah, like say for example, I was looking at flights and they're like, wow, right now you could, like, fly to Greece for, like, $200. I'd be like,
we're going to Greece.
Calling up everybody, quick, get on the flight. We're going to Greece. It's Mamma Mia.
That's me. I get emailed flight deals, and honestly, every time I see one, I'm like, hey, we have to go. And my partner Jonathan is like, we can't go on every trip. Like, who can afford this? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Let's just go.
See, I get suckered in because I look at, like, how cheap the flights are. And then I look at, like, how much it would cost to stay there. And I'm like, I cannot just fly all over the world and do all these different things, as tempting as it is.
Beg to differ.
Right? But yeah, so these are my questions, but can you guess what my story is for you today?
Some winged creature of the night is trapped in Greece.
Trapped. I'll give you 0.5. You are mostly correct, but you haven't hit the nail on the head, because I was very curious after I shared with you my Minotaur story if you'd heard of this one. So I'm going to read you out the description, okay?
I was thinking about your Minotaur story as you were asking me your questions, because I was like, familiar sounding, yes.
Yes. So, my description for you is in Greek mythology, Icarus was the son of the master craftsman Daedalus, the creator of the Labyrinth. Icarus, Icarus and Daedalus attempt to escape from Crete by means of wings that Daedalus constructed from feathers and wax. Daedalus warns Icarus first of complacency and then hubris, instructing him to fly neither too low or too high, lest the sea's dampness clog his wings or the sun's heat melt them. Icarus ignores Daedalus' instructions not to fly too close to the sun, and it causes the wax in his wings to melt. He falls out of the sky, plunges into the sea, and drowns. And this myth gave rise to the idiom, "Don't fly too close to the sun."
Ooh.
So
that's fun.
Right? So this story ties into our Minotaur story because the reason that this myth about Icarus and Daedalus exists is because Daedalus created the maze that the Minotaur was in.
Interesting.
Right? So I'll just get into my story here and then you can tell me what you think.
All right, get on into Ram.
All right, so the story of Icarus is one of those legends of Greek mythology that fascinates audiences because of his desire to go beyond human boundaries and the tragic consequences that this brought about. So, the tale of Daedalus and Icarus in Greek mythology tells the story of a father and son who used wings to escape from the island of Crete. So, Icarus was the young man who fell from the sky when the wax that fastened his wings to his body were melted by the heat of the sun. The legend of the mythological Icarus is closely related to a number of other narrations centered on Crete, the place where Daedalus worked as a craftsman and built a maze to keep the feared Minotaur under control. So, the tragic fall of Icarus begins with his father, and in fact he was the one to suffer and pay for Daedalus' misdeeds. So, Daedalus worked as an artisan in Athens, and together with a skillful apprentice named Talus, in a moment of rage and jealousy, Daedalus pushes Talus off of the rock of the Acropolis, but was unable to kill him. So, the goddess Athena turned the apprentice into a bird to save him, while Daedalus, now charged with murder, was forced to seek refuge on Crete. Once on the island of the Minotaur, Daedalus started a new life working in the palace of King Minos. He married Naucrate, a slave, and gave birth to Icarus. So, under King Minos's orders, Daedalus was asked to build a space able to contain the Minotaur. But instead of coming up with a prison cell, Daedalus decided that a complex labyrinth would be the best place to hide the monster. It was such a perfect construction that those who entered the maze were never able to leave. However, the existence of a Minotaur was a secret to most of the inhabitants of the island. And wanting the monster to remain a secret, the king locked up Daedalus and his family so that it could never be revealed. Cunningly, Daedalus hatched an idea to escape that did not require going through land or sea. The only possible way that they could ever leave the island would have been able to fly. Thus, Daedalus started gathering feathers from birds, which he later cunningly transformed into wings that were held together with wax. One pair of wings was going to be for him, and the other for his son Icarus. So, when the moment of escape arrived, Daedalus warned Icarus not to fly too close to the sun. But the disobedient boy did not listen to his father, and then he fell into the sea when, after rising too close to the sun, the wax in his wings melted and fell apart. So, expressions of human fears in nature, symbols represent deep intuitive wisdom and truth. They put into words everything that is hard to comprehend by reason. So, the flight of Icarus might be seen under the light of balance, equilibrium, and moderation, a compromise between the risk of flying too high and thus melting the wax from the sun, or too low, weighed down by the wings of the spray of water. So, this myth is one of those things where it's meant to serve more of like a lesson for people. And so the lesson is supposed to be that if you are somebody who is setting goals for yourself, if you strike too high and you work outside of what your abilities are, you can melt the wax from your wings and fall. Or if you are weighed down by like fear and like negativity and you don't actually end up like applying yourself to your goals, then you fall also. So it's about finding balance between like understanding yourself and knowing what's like what you can do and using these skills that you have to attain your goals versus the internal struggle of facing your own fears. And so that's kind of how people have interpreted the myth.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
First, it's King Midas, right?
Well, it's spelled not. It's not Midas because Midas is a different king. It's Minos, so Minos.
My first thought is King Minos, real dick. How dare he? He's like, you did this thing for me, but I'm just gonna lock you away forever. Just seems like less of a risk,
right? So there's that one, and then also the fact that apparently Daedalus does not give zero shits about his wife.
Yeah. And the thing is, the kid who was flying too close to the sun, can you imagine how terrifying it would be to be just up there flying your little fake bird or whatever?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the max starts welting. So it's probably burning your skin, and you're just plummeting to your death. Okay, that's my worst fear. Or one of them.
I know. And two, so what I did is I basically took a few different interpretations of the myth and kind of mashed them together. But in a lot of them, they say that his death is because his head was dashed upon the rocks and all these other things. But homeboy, as soon as he hits the ocean, dies. And there's also another weird interpretation of this myth where it's kind of so some interpretations of this myth, it less becomes about achieving your goals, and they make it to sound as if your father's word is
the
law, because in a couple of them that I read, there's this one where they were talking about how Icarus was flying close to the sun because it brought him joy in his heart, but because he did what made him happy against his father's words of wisdom, that was ultimately what caused his death. But this is again one of those things where people would take what they want from it because they want to preach a certain lesson to, I'm assuming, their children. But realistically, the version of the myth that I gave you is kind of what it's originally supposed to be closer to, which is it's more about intrapersonal evaluation than it is about projecting the father-son dynamic. But
I do feel it could definitely be interpreted as a cautionary tale about disobeying your parents and
that's what it gets
going
turned
off
into
and doing
a lot
your
of
own
the time.
thing. I definitely see the connection there.
Yeah.
I'm going to choose to believe it's about overachievers and whatnot, but
well, that's so with most of the ones I found, that seems to be the most common thing, is that it's mostly about overachievers, and kind of finding boundaries within yourself and overcoming personal issues that you might have that stand in the way of your success. That does seem to be the most common one. But like I said, you can totally tell when people have read something and they're ooh, I actually think I want to preach this to my children so that they never leave the house, type of thing. Ha ha ha, lucky me. So that would be the other side of it, but
oh god, people
favorite,
suck,
right? So like I was saying, I don't know if I said this earlier, but that because it's kind of piggybacking off the Minotaur story, it's not it's intensely long, and this one's more of a historical caution, you were saying, cautionary tale sort of based off of the Minotaur story, kind of from what I was able to see, but it's considered a minor mythos. Minor mythos is its classification. But I do have a quick little side blurb that I have about some the interpretations of it. So kind of lastly, to top off my little bite-sized story, is that literary interpretation has found that in the myth and structure and consequence of personal overambition, an Icarus-related study of the Daedalus myth was published by the French Hellenist François Frontici Ducrot in Psychology, that there may have been synthetic studies of the Icarus complex with with respect to the alleged relationship between the fascination for fire, enuresis, high ambition, and ascensionism. So, in the psychiatric mind, features of disease were perceived in the shape of a pendulous emotional ecstatic high and a depressive low in bipolar disorder, like as an example. So Henry Murray, having proposed the term Icarus complex, apparently found symptoms particularly in mania, where a person is fond of heights, fascinated with both fire and water, narcissistic, and observed to have fantastical or far-fetched imaginary cognition. So Seth Godin, in 2012, the Icarus deception points to the historical change in how Western culture both propagated and interpreted the Icarus myth, arguing that we tend to forget that Icarus was also warned not to fly too low, because seawater would ruin the lift in his wings, and flying too low is even more dangerous than flying too high because it feels deceptively safe. So this is kind of the ulterior one, where a lot of times people, like, within different, human behavior industries, so like psychology being one of them, like to delve into myths to kind of figure out, like, in that period of history, like, why would these myths have existed? Like, is it the purpose of kind of the cautionary tale like we discussed? Was there something more to it? And so as far as this one goes, there's actually, like I said, the Icarus complex is what they use to sum this up, because particularly in the story of Icarus, there's a really high warning about going too high or too low. And there is a very distinct focus on human behavior in the original telling of Icarus. And so when psychologists look at it, it ties into kind of how humans, we may not physically go too high to the sun or too low, but when you compare it to, say, like emotional states or how people feel or how they interpret life, or if they have certain psychiatric conditions, like kind of like he mentioned, like mania, bipolar as examples, there is a obsession with the high and the low being on complete opposites, with like the idea of like climbing a mountain, standing on the edge, or like, like all these different things. So I thought that was also a really interesting interpretation as well.
That is, and I think that also kind of plays into the like underachiever, overachiever thing, because playing it safe is just as dangerous, if not more.
Exactly. And then I do like too, so in kind of what I was saying, the most recent reiteration of the Icarus complex book that they kind of have theorized about, I do like that there's also, in this one they played more of more attention to the low aspect of it as well, because so previously when people started like identifying with the Icarus complex as like a theoretical study, it was more focused on the highs, like, because that's the story of Icarus, right? Like he went high, his wax melted off, and then he plummeted. So a lot of people are like, oh, okay, so that's like the focus, that's the angle, the concern about being too high. But now they're like, okay, but the fear that's installed in the original myth is also of the low. So now there's more of a focus of like how the lows tie into the highs as well, and what that means for people on a psychological level.
That's really interesting.
Right? So it's just a little something to think about. And
so what's the crime, Em? Kidnapping?
Well, yeah, because they were locked in their house.
Oh, sorry.
They were locked in their house and imprisoned unfairly, from what I was able to tell.
Ah, you're right. How could I even question it?
I told you, there's always a crime.
Sometimes it's just a hint of it, but it's there.
I love your silly little face. But yeah, that basically brings us to the end of today's story. A little shorter than usual, but I didn't want to let this one slide since we just talked about the Minotaur one just a couple weeks ago. So, if you guys liked today's episode, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you happen to be listening to us, you can leave us one there. Besides that, we do also have an email if you want to email us, and that's wheelofcrime@gmail.com. We also have a website, which is www.wheelofcrime.com if you want to check us out there. We have our social media, which is on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Wheel of Crime if you want to check us out on those platforms. And lastly, we do also have a Patreon if you'd like to donate to the show and get a little something out of it from us. And I think besides that, that is basically it.
Yes, that's the end of our show today, and we'll see you next week with another new episode. Okay, bye!
Bye!